Hey everybody, good morning. It's ready for Tuesday morning, and I hope you have a fantastic day. We've been looking at the tests as they go through the book of Genesis, the tests that God has brought upon and across the paths of people in order to just make them what He wants them to be and to serve His purpose. And that's basically very often the reason for our tests. But there are some tests that we bring upon ourselves. And this is the consequence of doing a mess up. This is the consequence of trying to do it like yesterday's, do it our way. And we reap the storm of doing it our way. But God allows that to happen, and sometimes He's able to redeem that mistake and get some good out of it. I don't say He won't. But the tragedy is that we make our mistakes because we go in a disobedience to God, and we ultimately, at the end of the day, we're probably going to pay the price. But occasionally God finds a gem of a person. In chapter 11, along with the story of the Tower of Babel, Abraham is introduced to us as the next hero. His name was not always Abraham. His name was starting off as Abram, and his wife was Sarai. And God worked with them, took them through many tests, of which Abraham later on, he failed so many. But like we said yesterday, when you have the blessing of God, failure is not fatal, and it's certainly not final unless you want it to be. And so we begin the story of this great man that God found and said, here's a man that I can really use. And he became the father of faith. He became the father of the Jewish nation. And what an amazing story it is. So let's look at some of the tests that Abraham and Sarai had to pass. In chapter 12 of Genesis, God finds Abram, and He says to Abram, I want you to pack all your stuff. I want you to move and go to a land that I will show you. So Abram must have said, well, wow, that sounds interesting, that sounds exciting. And in a polytheistic religious system where there were many gods, he was probably thinking, which of these gods is talking to me? But he knew that this was the God, Jehovah, the Creator. He did not know much about God, but he just knew the sound of that voice was a voice that needed to be obeyed. And so God said to Abram, He says, I want you to pack your stuff and take your wife Sarah and go to a land that I will show you. And Abram said, God, if that's what you want me to do, it's done. You see, he was not a self-made man saying, I'll do it my way. He wanted to do it God's way and became a God-made man, even though very often, as I've said, he got it wrong. But God blessed him abundantly for his faith and for his obedience. Now, can you imagine coming home to your wife, gentlemen, and saying, okay, wifey, we're going to be picking up all our stuff and we're going to be leaving here. And your wife would say, oh, we got on holiday. And you would have said, well, I don't think so. God said we must just go to where He will show us. And you and your wife would probably have agreed to say, well, where is this place? And you would have had to say, well, gee, I don't know. He didn't tell me. Well, how many of us are going to go? Well, it's just you and me. And I guess we take some of the stuff that we have if we can. And I don't know, we take our sheep and our servants and we just go. And imagine on the day of their leaving. And Sarah would have said to Abram, which way do we go? And Abram would have said, well, I'm not so sure, but let's just start to walk. And they walked and they journeyed. And ultimately, God took them to the place that He wanted them to be. But man, what a step of faith that was. What a point in his life where he put his entire life of his family and his possession and everything into the hands of God to obey an instruction so radical that took him right out of his comfort zone, that made him trust God completely, that turned him from a man of self-madeness, because he had lots of stuff, to a God-made man because he obeyed the command just outright. Man, that's what makes him so impressive to God. That's what makes him so amazing to God, that here's a man who's willing to trust me without knowing all the details. God never told him where he was going to go. God never told him why he was going to do it. It was only later on in the story that we find out that God explains the plan to Abram. But Abram began his journey just putting his life completely into God's hands, saying, God, if that's what you want me to do, then I guess that's what I'm going to do. And this is the trait of those who are able to trust God with every single detail. They're the ones who are able to trust God with the things they don't understand. They're the ones who are able to trust God through every situation, knowing full well that God is the one who must have the final say and not me. I don't know if you've ever been there. I've been there a few times, a little bit close sometimes, and I try to work it out, but at the end of the day, God's way, people, is always the best way. There's always blessing at the end of it. I'm not saying it will be easy. There will be challenges, there will be mountains, there will be enemies in the way. But at the end of the day, to achieve the purpose of God for which we're on this planet, it begins with a statement of faith to say, God, I'm going to do it your way, and I'll do it your way completely. How different to those at the Tower of Babel and said, oh God, we hear what you say, but we got a better plan. We'll just do it our way. And of the Tower of Babel, there is no record apparently to where this place was. It just fell, it crumbled, and there was a legacy of nothingness left behind. Look at the legacy that Abram left behind. Abram is still spoken about. He's a hero of our faith. And the choice, I guess, is ours. Self-made or God-made? I hope you choose the right one. Have a great day. Bye.